you ever wondered what has happened to the United States and its once vibrant culture? Have you ever wondered why a virtuous American culture has been in decay for over 60 to 70 years? The book Deus Ex Machina, God from the Machine, explains how foreign belief systems have been imported into the United States by foreign intellectual agents to be used to fundamentally transform the most prosperous and free nation in the world into a typical third world country. Learn how the progressive academics, progressive activists, large corporations, and the mainstream media have become appendages of the federal government, a Praetorian Guard, and an extension of the political vanguard class. Deus Ex Machina exposes the cogs of the machine that progresses our civil society to chaos and subjugation. Get this tool to educate others and illuminate the truth on the battlefield of ideas. Let's make a difference. Get Deus Ex Machina, the progression of secular socialism, from Amazon.com and Lulu.com today.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Are you getting a TV picture now, Houston? Neil, yes, we are getting a TV picture. You're in our field of view now. Okay, ready for me to come up? All set. Okay, I'm on the top step. It's a very simple matter to hop down from one step to the next. You get 3 more steps and it'll open. Okay, I'm going to leave that 1 foot up there and both hands down about the 4th rung up.
Roger that. 10 miles is back down my nose. Watch 1 again.
And we say to our nation tonight, we say to our government, we even say to our FBI, we will not be harassed. We will not make a butchery of our conscience. We will not be intimidated, and we will be heard.
How you doing, folks? Chris Pillier, Lanterns Media Network. Want to thank you for joining us on the battlefield today. Second night this week. Did a little show last night. If you all hadn't seen it, it was a pretty impassioned show about what took place in Charlottesville. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight as well, in case you missed it. But we also got some new information. So you basically have Bill Moyers, the left-winger, interviewing, well, none other than Al Sharpton, talking about the monuments and the situation down in Charlottesville. And, of course, you know, Al Sharpton says, well, there's really pretty much no reason why we shouldn't be upset with Thomas Jefferson since he was a slaveholder. Well, we'll talk about that tonight. We'll actually talk about the truth. And look, we can talk about the slaveholding aspects of our founders, but we're going to talk about them in perspective, and that's really, really what's important. We have to talk about these things, but we do have to talk about them in perspective, and what does it mean? So make sure, if you haven't yet, go to the Liberty Eagle on Facebook. You can watch our program there, as well as Lanterns Buzz on Facebook. You can follow us as well on Twitter at Lanterns Buzz, and make sure that if you're enjoying the show, that you share it with as many people as you can. Let's get as many people in here on the battlefield to talk about the truth, because the truth is what's important, not the agenda, because the truth has no agenda. It is just the truth. So let's talk about that so we can arm ourselves with the most important weapon, and that is the truth. As we enter onto the battlefield, we are going to be bringing on none other than Susan Swift on the Battlefield Live radio program from Lanterns Media Network. You're listening to the Battlefield Live radio program. Liberty Eagle, Lanterns Buzz. We'll be right back. Stick with me.
We're here to fix the machine.
Battlefield Live. You're listening to the Battlefield Live with Chris Pilier from Lanterns Media Network, the Battlefield Live radio program. Want to thank you for joining me on the battlefield today. If you're enjoying the show and have in the past, and are you looking forward to enjoying it now, make sure you go to facebook.com/the Liberty Eagle. Share that particular program from there, or you can go to Lanterns Buzz on Facebook and share that content. We're also on YouTube Live as well as Periscope on Twitter. So make sure you check out all those different locations. Like it, share it, share it, share it. Let's get as many people on the battlefield as possible. And we're not just looking for people that just want to toe the line and agree with us. The battlefield of ideas does not exist in a vacuum of all of us agreeing. I would imagine if you're conservative like me and you're in here on the battlefield that you may not agree with everything that I believe. And I need you to challenge me so we can find out where the common ground is and where the truth is. It's not about sacrificing our principles, sacrificing our morality in order to be able to come up with something that's just feasible. It's about getting to the bottom of it, the truth. And that's what we're going to do tonight on the battlefield. So none other than Susan Swift is joining us on the program. What's going on, Susan?
Hey, Chris, I am blessed and highly favored. How are you doing?
So how is your day going? So yesterday was kind of like drinking out of a fire hydrant, if you will. Love our firemen out there, but drinking out of the fire hydrant is quite all-consuming. How have you been doing today with the media storm that is the white nationalists that are everywhere?
Oh my God! Well, that's going on, but you know what? Like most people right now, we're getting ready for school. I have a bunch of kids starting school tomorrow. So that's another kind of fire hose that's going on. I've been getting ready for that. And I've been trying to stay on top of some stuff. And I've done a little piece about a guy who is starting to dox an Arizona professor, but he doxed the wrong guy. So what the left is doing is they are releasing, if you don't know what doxing is, we'll talk about it in a minute, but what they're doing is they're outing, they're shaming, they're outing people. Private people, not celebrities or little blogger people, but private people, and they got it wrong. So they're hurting people without checking their facts. But that's the left, so hey.
Hey, so I was actually on the ride in, and I was listening to, catching a little bit of Mark Levin's show. I do enjoy listening to Mark from time to time. And he had some audio of Bill Moyer, the one and only Bill Moyer, and he was... he was basically talking to the anti-Semitic Al Sharpton, the guy that doesn't like the Jews. What did he call him? He called him, I don't know if we can even say it on the radio, but basically he loud-capped Jews generally. And Al Sharpton basically said that, Thomas Jefferson was and this is all obviously in context to what we saw in Charlottesville with the monuments, the Confederate monuments.
Yes, Charlottesville is the latest media backdrop. This is like a play. This is just like a play. They just put down another backdrop. They do the same scene in front of a different backdrop almost every day because they want to keep you off and away from real issues like, taxes, Obamacare, Donald Trump actually fixing a lot of things. So they keep dropping these wonderful backdrops like Charlottesville, and then they create, as we talked about yesterday, they get all of their buses loaded up, and they bring all of the people to the same central hub of government. So didn't mean to interrupt, but I see exactly what they're doing.
Very important.
They're dropping. It's the next scene in the liberal play to destroy America. That's what the media does every day.
So what amazes me, Susan, is that you and I, literally, our show prep is maybe sharing some articles here and there, some videos, and we don't really talk about these things until we get on the air. And it seems to me, I don't know what it is, but you're in this head of mine, and you're reading my mind. It's kind of scary.
It's a superpower. It's what women do. It's just what we do. You guys are good at some things. We're not quite sure exactly what they all are, but we can read your mind.
Yes.
So there you go. It's a superpower.
I'm usually in trouble with my wife before I even say anything. I'm just in trouble. She knows
That's
what
right.
I'm about
Yes,
to
of course.
say. So the thing is that the narrative that's being built, obviously, is of the anti-Trump narrative, the anti-American narrative. You know, the founders were all slaveholders, evil, slaveholders that hated black
evil
people.
white guys. They were
Yeah.
evil white oppressive patriarchs, and they probably put burqas on all of the women colonists who came over here.
Yeah, they were raping their slaves, and they were just savages, and all this garbage, right? So that's the narrative, and this whole play that you're talking about, this stage, and the puppeteers, if you will, are the progressives like Hillary Clinton, and of course all of the the conga line of idiots like George Soros and Bill Ayers.
Kind of idiots.
Yeah, and so those, I mean, so it really is like, what do they call it? A marionette. It's a marionette. All these marionettes that are, just kind of, bouncing around the Antifa groups and all this. They have no idea what they're protesting. They're just pissed off because, the establishment that they see is the capitalist Wall Street establishment. And they're fighting alongside of the other people that don't like the establishment. Well, I can understand the establishment issue, but the establishment is not Jews generally. It's not whites generally. It doesn't have anything about to do with ethnicity. It's about ideology. It's about
Correct.
globalism and things of this nature, if I should quote our Alex Jones, the globalists everywhere.
Well, I mean, they're attacking conservative blacks all the time, which you can't be a conservative black. You have to stay on the liberal black plantation. You're not allowed to be conservative. They'll go after you if you're especially if you're black and conservative. That's a target rich environment for these liberals. So it is the marionette show. It is you have to have the proper costuming, and then you're put in front of the proper background for the day, the backdrop for the day, and we play out this little saga, and we try to convince people who don't really understand what's going on, but they're trying to get them to pay attention and buy into the narrative that America is a colonialist evil power.
That's right.
And it was evil from its inception. Its conception actually was original sin. The original sin of America was the founding fathers and the notion of individualism. That is, for the left, for the what you and I understand as the left, the classic communist socialist. That is the original sin of our country. We are not exceptional. We are steeped in sin from our conception, and we must be reorganized, redistributed. We have to be torn down and built back up properly along the lines of a global village, of a global community, so that the people at the top, which would be, as you were brilliant yesterday, by the way, explaining communism and socialism and how they are warring with each other to end up being top dog. But at the end of the day, right now, in the middle of the battle, they align together. Right. They usually align so that all they want to do is they want to create class warfare, confusion, hatred, and they want to divide and conquer. And then they're going to pick over the bones of America when they're done, and they'll duke it out in whatever the White House looks like at that time, or it'll be, in Geneva, Switzerland, or it'll be, the central Bilderbergers, wherever it is. But what they have to do, what they must do to turn the tide of this world, America and the exceptionalism that is America and capitalism has raised the entire world standard. It has raised everything. People in faraway places who'd never even heard of individual rights, they now can trade on the internet. They can do, transact business in Singapore, Japan, all these different places. And it is raising the standard of the world. And if these socialist communists are going to be effective in enslaving the world, they have to destroy capitalism, because capitalism is the engine of freedom. It's how an individual gains his or her power to transact and to create and pursue their own happiness.
That's right. So
that's what they have to destroy.
So one of the things, and folks, if you missed our show yesterday, it's really one that you need to watch. I know it was a little bit of last minute. Thanks, Blair and Ron and all those folks over at the Liberty Eagle giving us the opportunity. And I tell you what, man, the chat room is going absolutely bonkers over there. You want to say hello to Alice and Janice and, of course, Blair for sharing. Everybody that's sharing. Bobby, my good friend Bobby. Janice, Janice again, Brenda. Kimberly. I can't name everybody, but keep everything going there, folks. Keep the battlefield alive, because the ideas that we're talking about here are not our ideas. These are ideas that are timeless. One of the things that we mentioned last night was that there's all of these different groups trying to separate us, whether it's the neo-Nazi groups that are National Socialists, whether it's the communist-type groups like Antifa, or you could say they're anarchists, which to me are one and the same. It's about lawlessness. It's about trying to divide and conquer us. This unite the right idea of these nationalists is not about uniting the right of the conservative side and about which truly American. It's about uniting the right of hatred. It's about uniting this alt-right movement, which is really alternative right, which is not right at all. So
it's a brand. It's a fake brand. It's like a knockoff brand of Levi's.
That's right.
It's the not Levi's. That's what it is.
Yes.
You are buying into, if you're getting into the alt-right, maybe I'm on the alt-right because I'm a right person. I'm a conservative. But no. That's like going to, to a knockoff market in, I don't know, somewhere downtown LA and getting the not Levi's brand when you really think you're buying Levi's, because they're not the same thing. Alt-right is just a socialist. It's a socialist organization that is actually competing for your attention and trying to dominate you and explain to you why communism and socialism is better. Alt-right is a branding thing by the left that is designed to confuse us. That's what the left does.
Yes.
What they do is they project onto others what they are themselves, and sometimes they're very clever. They take words and they rebrand them and turn them into kind of bad words. Like they've taken the brand Republican and turned it into white, evil, male, oppressive jerk. Now they're trying to brand alt-right as all conservatives. So
right.
you have to know who the players are.
That's right. So one of the things that we talked about yesterday, Susan, and I truly believe that we do not win the battle on the street. And I'm not talking about we're not tough people and we can't go out and battle it if we had to. What I'm talking about is if we look. I'll read right out of the book, right? So Rules for Radicals, okay? Rules for Radicals. And
Saul Alinsky,
yes.
the thing he dedicated to Satan,
yes,
that book?
Yes, that book. So out of my book, actually, Deus Ex Machina, this is one of the rules that he has. He says, make opponents live up to their own book of rules. You can kill them with this, for they can no more obey their own rules than the Christian church can live up to Christianity. How about this one? Never go outside the experience of your people. The result is confusion, fear, and retreat. And guess what? They can't operate in logic. So bring them on the logic field. Bring them on the battlefield of ideas and try to get them to be logical. They cannot. But also, check this one out. This is rule number 3. Whenever possible, go outside the experience of your opponent. Here you want to cause confusion, fear, and retreat. And guess what? If you think that you're going to win against the media that's playing this whole anti-Confederate thing, if you think you're going to win that battle, you will not win that battle. And quite honestly, who wants to win that battle? Answer this, folks. And look, I know we're passionate about our heritage. We're passionate about these monuments. And I'm passionate about the Jefferson Monument. I've seen this beautiful thing, right? It's a monument. It's a thing. You can blow that thing off of the map in Thomas Jefferson's memory, his teachings, the things that he believed, the things that we learned from him. They don't go away. So while you protect that monument instead, protect the ideas, the monument and his ideas, which are monumental. They're beyond what we can truly fathom. Here's an example, okay? Mr. Thomas Jefferson, the evil slaveholder, as Al Sharpton would say. Here's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. No defender of slavery, I concede, that it has its benevolent aspect is lifting the Negro from savagery and helping prepare him for that eventual freedom which is surely written in the book of fate. Now, if you read that without any contextual premise at all, if you look at that and you don't understand it in context, people will think, well, see, he's saying that the Negroes are savages. Well, first and foremost, the Negroes that he's speaking about, okay, the Africans that were brought here to be slaves, they didn't know anything about Western culture. They were brought here against their will, sold by Africans as well. And when they came here, their culture became slavery. 3 generations in, Thomas Jefferson had slaves that he had acquired, and those slaves had no ability to live on their own. if they would have let these slaves go, okay, they go out and do their thing. Well, what happens? Do you think that they can survive on their own? No. What Thomas Jefferson is speaking here is that there was an eventual progression towards freedom for these individuals. And what he was talking about was that we had to realize that all men were created equal, all men under God, and that among the rights that were endowed to us by our Creator were life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There was nothing in there about white people. It was about all men. And when speaking of all men, it was all human beings. Of course, they spoke in the male gender, which really pisses the left off.
Yeah, but that's called proper English.
Right.
Hello. That's the other thing that they read. You were reading it, what Jefferson said. It's only somebody who reads it like a second or third grade level who cannot understand. And that's to blame on education. If you can't read a simple passage like that and understand the meaning of it, that's on you. That's not on Jefferson. But I've got to rewind to something you said that, well, let's take down all the Jeffersonian monuments and all of the what they're doing. They're taking down another monument in was it North Carolina? They're ripping down monuments to the Civil War soldiers. That's dishonoring our dead. It's also dishonoring the memory of the great battle that was fought and won for freedom. And here's something that really concerns me. It is an attempt to erase history. Yeah, you and I say, oh, that's not going to affect what the founding fathers said. Chris, they want to shred the Constitution. It is not going to stop with statues.
Absolutely.
It is going to progress to gravestone markers. We can desecrate the graves of anyone who was on the wrong side of that war. I don't even mind predicting that you might hear down the road some left-wing hack or politician mount a campaign politically to reclaim all of the hallowed battlegrounds like Gettysburg and Little Round Top, all of the places where Civil War soldiers are buried. And they're going to say, we demand reparations. This land should be sold. These slave owners, these evil white guys should be moved from that hallowed ground. And that's valuable land. And it should be given in reparation to the victims, whoever the victims happen to be, that'd be the left, right? But
Right.
they are advancing on this. They're going to take down more statues
absolutely.
as long and they're also doing it for another purpose, to challenge the police. Because
Absolutely.
they want to challenge the law. Look, if we don't have the law to enforce anything, we are in chaos. And if I can't enforce the law, well, I can't enforce the Constitution. This is a systematic attack and it's using emotion to nibble away at and eventually
Right.
strike at the heart of our Constitution.
So-
So they're not going to stop with statutes. They're not going to stop there. They're going to keep going.
And let me make sure that I clarify, because we're actually going to take a break here real quick. But I want to clarify something here. Number one, I do believe that these monuments are definitely important. And we can obviously chew gum and walk at the same time, right? I have a little trouble with that. But look, the bottom line is that our priorities need to not be about having physical altercations or going down to these places and getting physical with people. Look, let the law handle that. Okay, that's what that's what the police are there for. In some cases, the police don't show up. But if you take the law into your own hands, you end up doing
Can you blame
things. Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you do things that just get yourself in trouble, look. I truly believe that the battlefield is the battlefield of ideas. At some point, it may be another type of battlefield, which I hope we never get there. But the point is that we have to sharpen our pencil. We have to sharpen our mind. We have to sharpen our thoughts and make our ideas clear. We are fighting an ideological battle here, and the deflection is for us to actually fight a physical battle. They want us to get onto their battlefield. Their battlefield is amongst the marionettes. It's amongst the progressives that are being controlled by the left. We will not be able to play to do well in that play. We will always be casted as the negative, evil, colonialist, white supremacist. And by all means, I do not support any of those idiots that were waving Nazi flags and things like that. But there's something that we have to understand is that they may have 2 or 3 of those type of individuals with 1,000 of us, and those will be the individuals that'll end up on camera. Let's do this. We're going to take a quick break, folks, and when we come back, this is what I need you to do. Make sure that you share this. Let's get as many people on the battlefield as possible. This is a very, very important message, and we'll be back on the Battlefield Live with Chris Pillier and Susan Swift just in a moment, so stick with us. Don't go anywhere.
Lanterns illuminating the truth.
People often ask me, they say, Chris, how is it that we can change the minds of many in this country? And I say, well, you first don't start with the mind. You have to start with the heart. You don't change minds without changing hearts. And that's what we're going to do. It wasn't that long ago that you might have not have had hope for the country, and all of a sudden you have a change of heart. We'll expect that other people right now feel the same way that you used to. It's those people that we have to reach out to. It may be you that we have to reach out to. So it's our task to form a community, a group, unified behind principles, unified behind what has made America the country that it is now. It's about liberty. It's about freedom. And everybody wants to experience this. We just have to show them how. It's about you being a lantern shining out the light of truth. And we can bring this all together in one place. It's truly about the shining city on the hill. Hope is not in the hands of someone else. It's within ourselves. It's within our hearts. It's within our minds. And it's about utilizing those things in order to be able to make us free.
Lanterns illuminating the truth. Battlefield Live.
All right, you all have joined us on the Battlefield Live radio program. Thank you for sticking with us. All of you out there, the Liberty Eagle as well as Lanterns Buzz. You can find us on YouTube as well as on Twitter. And if you're enjoying the program and you'd like to actually get our podcast, if I can get all the locations, I can't remember them all. If I was smarter, I'd probably be doing something other than radio. I don't know. Maybe I'd be, I don't know, maybe some super wealthy, rich programmer out there. I don't know. Hey, this is what's actually most important. This is what's most important, is to make sure we get the news out. The wealth and all that stuff is great until somebody wants to come and steal it from you. Folks, if you're interested in the program and you like our podcast, is available for you at YouTube, of course, at iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player.fm, and SoundCloud. If you also want to support Lanterns as well as the Battlefield Live radio program, you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/lanterns. If you give us $20 a month, you can get this fancy Lanterns mug, which is awesome. Look, you got yours there. Susan's always drinking wine out of it.
It's hashtag mug of wine.
Hashtag mug of wine. So, all right, so I want to jump right back into this, and so I want to set this up. I want to set this up properly because you got to understand the sphere of influence that we're dealing with in regards to the media. We're dealing with these leftist groups. We're dealing with the politicians like Hillary Clinton and others that are just thirsty for power and trying to push and force their progressive change on us, which basically ultimately means socialism. And by all means, it's not just Democrats, it's Republicans as well. So I got an article here from the Free Beacon, and the title of the article is Hillary Clinton sent $800,000 from campaign funds to her new resistance group, quote unquote, resistance group. You've been seeing that a lot lately, right, folks? Resist is kind of synonymous with revolution. Basically, resist the I guess you could say the bourgeoisie, maybe. So the article it reads, failed Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton has sent $800,000 from her campaign funds to a new political action group, Federal Election Commission filing show. Clinton announced her intent to be a part of the resistance, quote unquote, in May with the formation of an Onward Together. Onward Together. How nice. So
doesn't that sound like forward? That's another one of those dog whistle words for progressive movement. Forward.
Well, think about the antithesis here, right? So if you're looking at this from the perspective of a progressive, and you're trying to build a dialectic against the enemies of the state, the enemies of their socialist utopia, you have on one side of the ring, you have Donald Trump and the people that just can't get along. They're so hateful and ugly and divisive, and they're trying to divide the country with these white nationalist people and all this stuff. And we're going to be onward together, like on a cruise on the Love Boat, just going into the sunset. So let's call it Onward Together. So you have the narrative being built on the play stage. Right? The marionette or the marionettes are dancing around with the strings connected by the progressive groups that are run by people like Hillary Clinton. Here, Hillary Clinton comes along onward together to create this imagery, this backdrop that the progressives are the ones that are the people bringing people together. Right? What do you think about that one?
Well, it's. I guess it needs to take its show on Broadway. I guess a whole bunch of leftists would probably buy tickets. Because they're fools.
Yes, and I think what's really, really interesting here is that if you really, really look at I always find this amazing. So they're wanting to get rid of these Confederate statues. Now they're wanting to get rid of the Jefferson Monument and things of that nature. Well, how about getting rid of the Democratic Party? I mean, isn't the Democratic Party the party of slavery, the party of segregation, the party of Jim Crow?
It's the party of KKK. The KKK was and is the terrorist arm of the Democrat Party. Just look at its history. That's what it was. It was designed to intimidate blacks in the South and actually deny them, the right to defend themselves under the Second Amendment.
That's right.
That's what they are. They would go out and lynch people and put burning crosses and use intimidation because their victims were black. All of these guys. Look, the Grand High Poobah Cyclops, whatever guy, Robert Byrd, one of the longest members of the Senate, was he was the KKK, the lead head man, the Cyclops, and he was in the Senate. Nobody wants to admit that, I guess.
He was not only the Senate; he was the head of the Democrats in the Senate.
Yeah.
He was the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. He was a grand wizard.
And the DNC. And the Democrats. And the two sides have kissed as one. Right there he is. You got the proof.
Yes.
It's a racist organization from its founding. And that's what the Democrat Party is.
And you can really, really dig deep here and find so much stuff. And we've written about it quite a bit on Lanterns. But look, let's get into some of the meat and potatoes here. So I don't know if many of you out there listening know who Hugo Black is. Hugo Black was appointed, I believe he was appointed by, it was either FDR or Woodrow Wilson, to the Supreme Court. And he was one of the people that took church out of school, or basically took religion out of school. And it was built on the premise of the separation of church and state, which was completely taken out of context by Hugo Black and others.
It's an intentional misreading of the Constitution.
Yes,
absolutely.
And what's interesting is he was appointed by a progressive, and he was a KKK leader. Woodrow Wilson was the person to segregate the civil service. FDR was a huge racist. And the thing is that if you look at the whole idea of eugenics came to the shores of Europe on the boats of America, if you will, at least from an ideological standpoint. Hitler was actually taking notes on the progressives in eugenics. I mean, look at Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger was the person that wanted to exterminate the black community, that wanted to destroy the family.
It wasn't just the black community. She was a WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. She absolutely enjoyed and loved the eugenics movement. She was a fan of it. And she wanted to wipe out blacks, browns, and Catholics. That's what she wanted to do. And the way she wanted to do it was, and this is typical of leftists, is say, well, we need to elevate the woman out of poverty. So what's keeping women in poverty? Too many children. And demonizing that life is a bad thing. Because you have life, that's why you're poor. So we need to educate you. We need to give you contraception. And then if that fails, we need to give you abortions. Because the worst, it's one of the quotes that she has. It's one of the six quotes. I'm paraphrasing. The worst thing that you can do is give for a child is to be born into a large family. That's a curse. That's the thinking of this psychotic woman. I've made fun of her. I like to call her Margaret Sanger because she sounds like one of the Germans on the eugenics. She was a fan of Hitler. I want to kill the black babies and the white babies who are Catholic and the Mexican babies because too many children, that's not good. I mean, really.
Talk about a neo-Nazi, right? I mean, look, she said we don't, and this is one of the things that she was writing at the time. She says she wanted to create a race of thoroughbreds, right? And that's what she believed birth control was.
It's superior it's racism. That's the fallacy that there are certain races are more equal than others, just like George Orwell wrote in 1984. That was prescient. And here she is. They wanted to make designer babies. We're actually on the threshold of that now. There is actually technology that people are pushing to be able to, in the zygote itself or in the egg itself, we're going to start tinkering around with human DNA to improve the race, to improve us all. This is no different from what Margaret Sanger was doing. And she, by the way, just to close the loop for people who don't know, because a lot of people don't, she was the founder of Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, that's her monument.
Planned Parenthood does not like to admit that she is the founder, because there's plenty of stuff you can Google on Margaret Sanger, racist, Margaret Sanger, eugenics, Margaret Sanger, go find it out. But she is the founder of Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood gets, $350 million a year in our money, your money, and my money to fund abortions, to kill babies before they can be born. They're killing black babies because, we don't want any black babies to be born. I mean, that is the quintessential racism.
Yes.
And that's on the left. That is the left. We've got the KKK, white supremacist guys with their hoods going around terrorizing black families in the South. And on the other side of it, we've got Margaret Sanger and the Planned Parenthood, and we're going to kill all of the black babies. And that way we have a nice white race all over America. That's also the left.
Yes.
The left is the racist party in America who wants to kill blacks and browns and Catholics, who is not tolerant. And they demand your money to create and perpetuate this blood sacrifice in abortion mills around the country every day with our money. That's not tolerance. That's murder.
So to bring that back around, Donna on the Liberty Eagle makes a great point. She said Hillary stated how much she admired Margaret Sanger, and she's absolutely right. And what's really interesting about this, if you look at the highest levels of the progressive era, when they were doing compulsory sterilization, they were studying eugenics, they were actually sterilizing blacks in the country. You had groups like the Carnegie Institution, Rockefeller Foundation, J.H. Kellogg, or all of these were.
Here's another big one. Oof.
Yeah, J.H. Kellogg. They ran the Race Betterment Foundation. I mean, this whole idea of progressivism came out and was sprouted out of the idea of racism. In fact, they couldn't enslave the blacks, so they figured they could exterminate the blacks. They did it through sterilization, they did it through abortion, and all these different things. And all of a sudden, the progressives are the friends of the blacks. But yet, if you look at what progressives do, they've destroyed the black family, they've destroyed black communities, they've infiltrated these particular places, causes, if you go read the website like we did last night of Black Lives Matter, and you read their principles, those are not true American principles that a black American would want to be a part of. No, these are what is called the African American principles that are becoming of the Black Lives Matter movement, that are nothing more than a big communist piece of garbage. And it's all intended to destroy the unity within the black community, which is the family, which is the church, which is the real bloodline of blacks in this country. And those are the individuals that are just trying to destroy that. Not some stupid monument and a small fringe group of neo-Nazis in the country. I mean, give me a break. The bottom line is here.
But they use that. You see, they use optics. The left uses optics of taking down the statues and saying these guys are white supremacists. They use these as flashy things to get your attention, and then they like to brand it and they like to say, oh, because these guys are white and they're on the alt-right because they've been branded, therefore the right, Republicans, conservatives are all racist. They try to lump us in like they're trying to blame Donald Trump for all of this. Right. He had absolutely nothing to do with it. But he's a white guy and he's president, and he did the one thing that he was not allowed to do, which was beat Hillary Clinton like a rented mule during the election. And you know what? They still can't stand it. So what they're doing, they're trying to undermine and absolutely destroy the validity of his presidency, freeze him so that he can't do anything. And hopefully, if they can retake the House in 2018, they will advance articles of impeachment. They're going to try. Because they can't have him in the White House. And so
this is really where I think we need to focus, folks, because we could be drawn onto their battlefield. We could be drawn into these places where these monuments are in these fields, where they've set up the cameras, where they got the whole stage built, where they got the strategy that they've been working on for years, and they can draw us down there and point out the one or two idiots over there, or the fringe groups that come to these events that are on the so-called right, which are really a part of the left, and they can use those individuals as some type of one of the marionettes. Yeah. Well, the thing is that the way we have to do this is we have to control this on our comfort level, on our battlefield, which is the battlefield of ideas, which is the real battlefield, not that fake place out there where we're talking about like material items. Let's talk about the ideas. Look, Chris, if you look at what Clinton's doing. Okay, if you look at what the media is doing, if you look at what the establishment is doing, they are painting the picture. And we can go jump into that picture, or we can paint our own, right?
Well, what do you recommend people do when it comes to their town and look, this is public property that they're defacing. I mean, just today I read a story that someone has sprayed red spray paint on the Lincoln Memorial, and it's F, it looks like it might be F law. I actually, when I looked at it, I saw F Islam. I mean, It's kind of interesting the way that I don't know what it was meant to say, but here's some guy or gal who's got red spray paint, and she or he went to the Lincoln Memorial, which should be a shrine to freedom. It is a shrine to freedom, and it is a shrine to the unity of America and the better intentions and the nobility of Americans who fought, bled, and died for freedom to keep our country united. And these people are defacing those monuments.
I understand
now, that's public property.
I understand
that's my money.
There needs to be reverence there. There needs to be reverence there. But the thing is in order to win any battle, sometimes you have to lose a battle to win the war. But the battle, the way to win the battle and the way to win the war is to always have the high ground. In the battle we're fighting, if we don't understand the enemy is not some group of 17 or 18-year-olds that can't figure out how to get through school. They want to smoke pot and snort coke and freaking destroy public property. That is not the battlefield that we're going to need to fight on.
And they're getting paid to go out there and hold up pre-printed signs financed by George Soros because they're cool. school.
No, and that's the thing. Look, I don't want to see these things defaced either. But the bottom line is we're in a war, okay? And I hate to go the route of the war because that's what the progressives love to do. Everything's a freaking war. It's a drug war. It's the culture war. All these different things, right? But the bottom line is we're dealing with an ideological battle, and the only way to win the ideological battle, number one, is to educate ourselves. Educate ourselves and build a community. And that community starts with yourself and your family and the community amongst your church. And most importantly, the leader of that is God. You have to build that community there. And once you build that community, and you may already be at that point, that's great. But you have to build that education within yourself, and then you have to reach out and educate others. Get out in front of these people. These people have been doing this for 100 years, and they can't win on the battlefield of ideas because they're idiots. They run around in circles in their own little dialectic. And the only way that we can win this war is to not engage on their terms, on their battlefield, and be fighting to their high ground. Our high ground is to be smart, is to be intelligent, is to be calm and calculated. Not to be the pistol whipping guy on the thing that curses every time and tries to be cool and all that stuff. No, just simply say things that are true. Speak the truth. That resonates. Not the name calling, not the physical violence, all those things. Those are all superficial ways of getting your point across, and they never work. They'll most likely get you in trouble. But
those are the hallmarks of the left.
That's
too.
right.
That's what they do. Because if you challenge them on an idea, they immediately go to ad hominem attacks, and they call you. And I get called all kinds of. Boy, I have some nice people calling me all kinds of really rude names because I'm a conservative woman. I'm the C word. Yeah. I get called that because because you know what? I'm sorry, they're just not smart enough to actually come up with a response to ideas. So they immediately, just like a 5-year-old, start throwing a temper tantrum and call us names. That's when you know you're winning, when they start calling you names.
So I truly believe, and I've said this before, that we've lost the battle of these monuments. And the reason why is because we've waited until now to talk about the importance of them. Where is the case that's being built for Thomas Jefferson and his monument? We're not.
How about George Washington? Are they going to go after George Washington next?
That they will.
I mean, they're already talking about taking off the sculptures on certain walls in different buildings. Well, why not George Washington? Why not take? I mean, I think he owned slaves, didn't he, at some point? So so why should we have any monument to George Washington, who was the first president and arguably the icon of America?
That's exactly
right.
Let's get rid of him too. The way that you disarm the left is you simply speak the truth and in logic, and you do it before they create the polemic that demonizes you. Jackie makes a good point. The truth will never resonate because this is a calculated takedown of this country. It will resonate, though, Jackie, if you get down in front of the narrative. If you expose the narrative out front and you open the eyes of people before they are attacked by these leftists, you can do that. But I do agree that it is a calculated takedown of the country. And we have to be smart and we have to be prescient enough, like our founders. First, we have to learn from them, and then we have to be prescient like them to understand the enemy and their calculated steps. We have to get out in front of those steps. And the way that we do that is to understand who they are, where they're coming from, and it's a very simple strategy to completely deconstruct their infrastructure. We beat the crap out of them in the election. We beat the crap out of the Clintons in the election.
Beat them like a rented mule, absolutely.
Yes, and we did it with passion.
It really feels good to beat them in the elections. And you know what? Hello, Mitch McConnell. 2018 is going to be a bad year unless you get your ducks in line and start repealing Obamacare like you promised.
That's
Otherwise,
right.
We're going to have another epic beating.
Yes, and
politically speaking,
we won the election. Republicans won the election, and I say we very loosely, okay? Because Donald Trump was not my first
Conservatives helped a lot.
Yes,
okay?
they did.
Libertarians and conservative. And you know why? You and I agree on this because Trump was not our guy, But we voted. There were two reasons we voted for Donald Trump. And those two reasons are Hillary Clinton.
That's right.
That's why we voted for Trump.
And the reason why we won is because we were passionate, we were positive, we knew that we had to get to this place. Look, one of the things that Donald Trump ran on was immigration and trying to fix our immigration system first by the wall. If we understand the basic premise of what we're talking about here and the trying to create an underclass. Look, I truly believe that African Americans, as I hate to call them, I'd much rather call them Black Americans or American blacks, the Americans in this country are waking up to this crap, and the Democrats are realizing that they have to expand their base, and the only way they can do that is to create an underclass that's dependent on them. That's why they don't want the border to be there with a wall. That's why they want to try to bring in people that are foreign to the American way. And I'm not talking about foreign in an ethnic sense. I'm talking about an ideological sense. Bringing people from places like Venezuela in this country.
They don't know any better.
No.
They're socialists because they depend upon the government in Venezuela. In most of the world, the way that the world is built is that most people depend for their daily lives and a lot of things on government. And that is exactly who the left wants to import.
That's
because
right.
It's only through importing and continually propping up their base and denying assimilation. Because if you assimilate and you understand why America is an exceptional nation, and if you understand individual liberty comes from God, not government, that's a complete mind shift. All of a sudden, I am responsible for my own happiness. And on the other side, the Democrat Party is saying, no, please, you need us to be happy. We're going to give you the phones. We're going to give you all the food. We're going to give you everything.
That's right.
So that is the battle, is individual reliance versus government control and reliance.
And look,
and that's why they have to import people who don't understand the difference.
Mark makes a great point on the Liberty Eagle. He said most Americans live in a gigantic propaganda lie or propaganda bubble in which they're intentionally, strategically, and emotionally mind programmed from the mainstream media. And while that may sound a little bit conspiratorial and black helicopter, he's absolutely right.
Right. He's right.
They're basically telling us that what we need to believe. They're trying to mold our culture through the prism of their ideology. They're not wanting to tell the truth. Look, the Antifa movement is much more dangerous than this neo-Nazi movement. Neither of them are worth a crap. But the Antifa movement is a huge movement that spans much larger than these fringe neo-Nazi groups. And we're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, Occupy Wall Street. It's the Black Bloc. It's all the same crap. It's all the people that all are trying to do is create division. Look, I know they could give a crap about these monuments and what they stand for. What they want is to create conflict. And they know if they create conflict that people will go down there and they can use them as a tool in their dialectic to win their ideological war. It's against capitalism. Right. It's against freedom. It's against America. These are all attacks on us, and we have to be careful in how we participate in that battle. And we have to beat them at the battle. I call the media the make-believe media because first they make up the news and then they make you believe it with polls and just overwhelming, nonsensical stories. That's what they're doing every day. Every day they make up an angle. They attack, the president's approval rating has plummeted. Whatever it is, it's sent out to all of the different liberal establishments, and they repeat it over and over and over again because they want to saturate you. It is propaganda, and that's what the make-believe media does. You and I have to be very savvy and read and understand, and we have to find – that's why you and I are here. We try to find the news that's out there that is not controlled by the left, by the make-believe media, so that people can learn what really is going on. And you're right. We can't buy into and become tools for them to write stories about us. That these leftists, they're targeting these statues. Well, I don't know why I'm saying that, and they're trying to get everybody up. Look, I mean, this is on Liberty Eagles page, the Liberty Eagles Facebook page. They've got a great story up there that Black Dallas group forms to protect monuments, and the lead is that a predominantly Black Dallas group forms to protect Confederate monuments. Nobody will talk about them.
Well, nobody's going to talk about it, but here they are. These are Black Americans, and they're going to go protect these Civil War, these Confederate monuments. But the media, the make-believe media, they don't want you to know about that because blacks protesting Confederate monuments, we can't have that. So they're not going to get any traction on that. So that's because they don't want you to know what's the truth.
Right. So there's a lot of commentary on social media right now on Facebook. Mark actually mentions, again, this disinformation campaign. I want to pry open the soup can that is the media, the ideological soup can that is the media. And look, you know, I wrote about this in Deus Ex Machina. There's a guy by the name of Walter Lippmann. If y'all are looking on Facebook, you'll see this guy right here, Walter Lippmann. If you go to journalism school in college, you'll learn about Walter Lippmann. And what Walter Lippmann believed, and I'm actually looking for the quote, and I don't want to waste your time while I dig around, but he basically, his idea was that instead of reporting the news, it was the responsibility and the obligation of the media to make the news. And that it was important that in progressivism, you got to understand the entirety of progressivism. People like John Dewey, I'm hearing Mark Levin talk about John Dewey. We wrote about him in this book as well. John Dewey was the guy that was trying to change the education system from being a classical education system to be a progressive one that was intended to mold the culture. And so Walter Lippmann was doing it from the angle of the
journalism.
The angle of journalism. Yeah. You had people like Bernays, who was, I think his uncle was a Freud or something of that nature. He was related to Freud in some way. But basically they were using the manipulative factors in order to be able to, much of it was simply, advertising and things like that, but they were also trying to shape the ideas of the American people through propaganda. So we got 2 more minutes here, Susan. I want to ask you, if there's something that you see that we need to do right now, what's like, if you had like the number one thing that we have to do in order to defeat this beast, this evil progressive beast that we're facing, what would you say that we would need to do?
That's easy. Go to church today. It is a holy day of obligation for millions of Catholics around the world because it's the feast day of Our Lady, the Assumption of Our Lady. And we should kneel down and we should pray and ask God to forgive our nation and to heal us because he will. That's the first thing you do. And then you get up with your family and you tell them that you love them and you sacrifice for them. You do things to help them make everything better in very, very small ways. Nothing is ever done in grandiose fashion. Salvation is an individual act. Christ came to save us individually. You and I have an individual part to play, whether it's our day-to-day, the little stories we write, or it's talking to one person at Walmart or in the line at the bank, talking to people one-on-one, doing those things. The other thing that we can do, which is a little bit bigger, is to stay informed by reading and paying attention, and to remember, by taking it to prayer, not to get enraged, not to get misled by the make-believe media out there. But the first thing is God. The first thing is God.
Well, I'll second you on that, and we basically got 1 minute left. So I think alongside of that, I think the community aspect is extremely important. Educating ourselves is extremely important. And think about what it is that we need to do. Think about it well before you go out and act. Understand what we're facing here. Think 2 and 3 and 4 steps ahead of what we would some wise call our ideological enemies. Make sure that what we're doing is what is American. Make sure that we're supporting the spirit of the Declaration of Independence and that our solutions are derived within the boundaries of the Constitution and that we work there. Don't sell yourself out for the win that will end and winning the battle, for that matter. Sometimes you have to lose the battle to win the war. And so don't make alliances with people that will destroy this country. And be careful with that.
Amen to that.
So Susan, where can everybody find you on social media?
They can find me on social media at Real Susan Swift. Real Susan Swift. They can also find me on my website, susanswift.net.
Awesome. Folks, you can find me at Paul Revere again on social media. That's Twitter and Facebook. You can also find Lanterns Buzz on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player.fm, and SoundCloud, as well as Spreaker. Make sure you go to our Patreon page. You can give as little as $1 a month, folks. Patreon.com/lanterns. I want to thank you for joining us on the battlefield. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, 7 p.m. Central Standard, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be back on the battlefield to discuss more of this and what is the truth. We're here to illuminate the truth. Thank you for joining us on the battlefield. Talk to you later, Tater.